Never ever loan out your woman, never ever loan out your saw. They'll both come back broken. Here's a couple of standouts from the last couple of weeks. I don't think there's anything good left on this at all. I've never seen one crushed quite so bad. Both case halves are busted. Let me get down here. Hey, look, there's a flywheel. You're not supposed to be able to see that. Yeah, she's broke. I don't know how this got drug, but you know, if you look, that's whew. Let's look at this one today. If you'll notice that logo, most of you who watch my channel also watch Tim O'Brien, Cotton Top 3. That's the hardest working white dude on YouTube. Anyway, Tim's a good friend of mine. He called, and some friends of his, they loaned out their saw to a neighbor, and she's broke. Now, I have no idea. We're going to go through this together and just check some normal things. Check the gas. We'll pull the plug, look at the cylinder. If we need to, we'll pull the muffler cover on it, and let's see what it's going to take to get this beautiful 044 back in presentable and working condition. I believe they bought this brand new. I guess that would be 2000. This is a non-decomp 044. I'm sure it has a MAL, not a KS cylinder on it, and more than likely, if I remember right, this should be a 12 millimeter. I think so. But regardless, let's dig into this and see what the neighbor did. Sorry for not posting that much content in the last week or two, but I'm telling you, man, I've always been popular, but I am incredibly popular right now. All right, fuel looks good. Don't see anything wrong there. But then again, I don't know if this is the fuel that was used. I mean, I got a rule of thumb, you know, when somebody calls me and says, hey, Rich, can I borrow your chainsaw? And I said, sure, I'll bring it with me. You know, if they're a good enough friend, I don't mind helping out. But people that don't own chainsaws or don't have a running chainsaw is because they don't know how to use and operate and maintain. You know, it's not your average piece of equipment. You know, it's a two-stroke, you know, they're kind of needy. Yeah. People that don't understand that, you know, when you hit the dirt and you keep running it and the chain keeps getting, wow, this has still got the original plug in it. That, you know, if you can't keep a saw under load, then you're going to over rev it and cause excessive heat. That looks a little bit on the dry side. Yeah, she scored. Okay, let me pause this. I'm gonna take the muffler cover off and we'll get a good, better look at it, and we'll just dig in and tear it down. We'll do some of this tear down live. I haven't cracked the cylinder head bolts yet. But, you know, my own personal experience, you know, back in the day when I bought my first chainsaw, and it was something crappy. And I finally, I was like, you know, and I even realized, and I wasn't even a chainsaw geek at the time, you know, I thought, you know, geez, this thing's really a hunk of crap. So I bought a Makita. And then after 2 or 3 years, you know, it was acting up, and the internet really wasn't all that back then. I was trying to get it serviced because it wouldn't, you know, I was having a hard time getting it to start. And again, as I mentioned on the channel before, you know, I'm a chef by trade. So, you know, I'm not super savvy with this by any stretch. I'm just some ignorant fool. Anyway, I got it running, and that's kind of how I started fixing chainsaws. But I remember the one time I let my best friend, you know, Tommy, and if you're listening, Tommy, yes, it's you. You know, he's a gearhead, man. I mean, he's a smart dude. He's mechanically inclined. He's, you know, I could loan him any other tool. That bastard borrowed my chainsaw to do some cleanup work, and when I got it back, all the bar paint was about gone off the bar. The chain was absolutely a disaster. And to top it off, he used my nice, pretty, clean chainsaw that I, cleaned up and blowed off and everything else. To cut railroad ties. Who does that? Well, Tommy did. And that was the last time I ever loaned a chainsaw out to anybody. That was like 20 years ago. That's just not something. Hold on for a sec. Did that? Oh, no, okay, I just didn't. Huh. Let me see if. Oh, hell, the cylinder bolts are loose. All of them. I don't think I cracked those, or maybe shit, I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. I'm sorry. It's just been a blur lately. So let's pull this and see what it looks like. I can tell you by looking at this, all the original gold colored screws are still on the saw. I don't think anything's ever been done to this. Oof. Oof. As a friendly reminder, and this comes from, your saw mechanic on YouTube. You can take it with a grain of salt. But if your two-stroke is acting up, stop running it. If it's acting up and not one idle or whatever, if it's the sooner that you stop running it when it's acting up and take it to the shop, the less the repair bill is going to be. So let's take a look at the inside of this. Let me blow some of the crumbs off of here, but oof. So, stuff like that doesn't happen in just, a couple of minutes or one cut. I mean, she has scored up something awful. And so for those of you, you can always learn something from this. Here, let me wipe that off a little bit. If this had been straight gassed, I would have seen scoring on the intake side of the piston. But because you see how nice and pretty that is, the man who owns this saw took very, very, very good care of it. And then he loaned it to his neighbor. As a side bonus, I have a second saw. I sold this saw to a part-time tree guy. Anyway, so he used the saw a couple of times. Obviously, didn't have any issues with it. And then brought it to me and said, "Hey man, my saw doesn't run." And I said, "Oh really, what happened?" And he, "Well, I loaned it to my friend, but he didn't do anything." Okay, so here's another, horribly scored, non-straight gassed saw. So what I found was when I pulled the top end off, this line right here, maybe I can get to it from right here. Come on. All right, so that nipple right there, that impulse line is supposed to be hooked up to it. So here, I'll explain what the impulse line does. Every time the piston goes up, it creates vacuum in the crankcase. And when it comes down, it creates pressure in the crankcase. So with that rubber hose right there that goes from the crankcase to the carburetor gives you the thump, 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 which helps the carburetor pump more fuel. So if you don't get thump, 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 it'll kind of fire just by the suction of pulling air through the carburetor, through the Venturi, and some oil, some gas and oil will go into the engine. But it's not going to run right. You really had to go out of your way with the vacuum line unhooked from this to get it to run. So on the 361, I actually got it with the bar and chain. So we got a couple of things here. This is what I mentioned earlier. I did not get the bar and chain from this one. So let's take a look at the bar and chain that came off the 361. You know, people that don't run chainsaws, let me see if I can't get in a little bit better. It's about as tight as I can get you in. There's significant damage to these teeth. There's no way, I mean, that's a little too much glare. Let me move the light off of it just a little bit. I mean, that's all snaggle-toothed. You know, this saw, there's no way got any grip in the cut. And it was revving to the sky, creating a lot of heat. So let's take a hard look at this 44 and see. So, you know, I'll actually show you this to begin with. You know, if you look down in the crankcase, you know, you've got all this ground up aluminum that's coated on everything, and that would include the ball bearings. So if I rock this back and forth, hopefully you can hear. So the bearings have got some trash in them. We're not going to try and flush that and make it go away. I think we split the case, throw some new bearings at it, and then we'll have to look at some of the rubber bits. Let me see how, there's your impulse line. And that's really hard just because it's so old. You know, rubber's just loses its elasticity. And then it's still got the original fuel line in it. I would imagine, yeah, it's pretty hard. You know, it may make a good seal. And then let's just take a peek inside the carburetor while we're being holistic about this. Let me straighten you out there a little bit. And let's take a peek and see what the diaphragms and everything else look like. That actually looks really, really new. So there may have been a kit put in this at some point in time, or the carb may have been replaced. You know, and that's entirely possible because it's hard to say, but I think in 2000, I don't think they were doing these. Let me make sure let me back this out a little bit. I don't even know how much of that was actually caught on screen. But the limiter tabs, you would have seen a more traditional, you know, just screws on the side of this carburetor. I can't say that for sure. It's possible that at the time of this production, you know, maybe they were introducing the limiter caps, so, you know, people wouldn't, you know, do anything terrible. That's pretty firm, but the pump diaphragm, I mean, it's hardly got any memory in it whatsoever. So, you know, we'll just call the carb a win. We'll put a new kit in it. That's cheap. You know, these are like 10 or 12 bucks for a real Walbro HD 10 kit. The rest of this all looks fine. All right, so let's wrap this up. Okay, so if you're not watching this right away and you're seeing this down the road, we're 4 weeks, just shy of 4 weeks away from the hurricane that just swept through the upstate of South Carolina. Well, actually through the entire southeast, Helene. And so what has happened is it's taxed Steel and Husky. As of this moment, the parts warehouse is completely overwhelmed and the orders are coming out super duper slow. I tried to log into Power, which is Husky's, Husqvarna's dealer portal for parts and whatnot. I can't log in right now. It's down, maybe just for maintenance, and that's a thing. But there's a lot of stuff that's out of stock. You know, I tried to order another roll of chain from Husqvarna, and it's on back order. Looks like for, you know, and it may come in sooner. They'll give you an estimated date. And today's the 23rd of October. I want to say it was like the end of November, early December when the estimated date was. So I had to jump on eBay and find some chain for my customers. It's just been nuts, and trying to get parts, and everybody wants their stuff back, and it's a nightmare. with that being said, I'm going to contact the owner of the saw, and we got a couple of avenues we can take. I've got a new old stock cylinder that we can put on here. Typically with this much scoring, I can clean this up. I just don't know how much plating is going to be left by the time I get the aluminum transfer out of here, so I won't recommend that. As nice as this saw is, and I think all said and done, we can do this right, for $500, $600, which is less than half the replacement cost. A new 462 is going to run you $1,500. And these are fantastic saws. I love the 044s. They're light, they're nimble, they got a lot of power. Great saw. And so with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Throw me a thumbs up if you're still here at the end. And I will see you on the next one. We will do a follow-up video when I get everything assembled or all the parts in hand to put this back together. And I'll try and ease out some content here and there, but I'm just playing whack-a-mole right now, trying to fix whatever I can to keep the tree guys of the upstate moving. Again, we're just shy of 4 weeks out, and they are still picking less critical trees off of houses and detached garages. It's not just the local tree companies around here that are swamped with this. We've had outside tree services that have come into our area, as well as other areas here in the southeast where the hurricane path went, and they're, cranes are running all day and running into the night, and it has been for weeks, trying to get all these trees off of people's houses. It's nuts. So say a prayer for them, and I'll see you on the next one.